What is going on, guys? Today's a very important week, both for Tesla, the company, the stock, and potentially Robotaxi. And it's basically revolving around version 14 releasing this week. Now, this is also a very big deal for users like myself and you, or maybe you, if you own a Tesla with FSD. How's it going, Blue? But that version 14 is going to really kind of tell what the future is going to look like for the next, I would say probably anywhere between 3 months to a year. So 3 to 12 months. Tesla is really going to be highly impacted by how good version 14 is. And when I say version 14, it's okay if it's version 14, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, but version 14 is going to be the package that will have the inherent base level of how good FSD will be. Now, as we've seen, when we went from version 12 to 13, got significantly better. There's a bunch of missed turns that version 12 did. It didn't handle blinking lights, like yellow blinking lights saying proceed with caution, or red blinking lights. Didn't handle those very well, but mainly the yellow blinking lights, where it would basically try to stop at a yellow blinking light. There was weird instances like that on version 12, and whenever we came to version 13, a lot of those things got fixed. What, Blue? A lot of those things got fixed, and we're gonna see that same thing happen with version 14, and especially as we get into some of the iterations of version 14. As Elon Musk had mentioned, by the time we get to version 14.2, he said it will feel sentient. Now, that makes me really question and think about why would version 14 versus version 14.2 be much different. And really, it's probably just a matter of working out the bugs. Because when the version number is going to have the inherent differences. So one of the big differences going from 13 to 14 is that we're going to have more parameters. And I made a video a month or two ago talking about parameters, going really deep into parameters. So if you're interested in what parameters really means, go watch that video, because again, we get really deep. It's like a 45-minute video. But the parameters are the big difference, right? And the reason why you go from a version 12 to a 13 to a 14 is because there's some significant difference where, in a sense, you kind of have to start back over with all your training, right? There's some things that'll carry over from version 13 to 14 for your training. And say, for instance, things that they hard-coded for Robotaxi and Austin plausibly transferred over. But there's also a plausibility it literally gets scrapped and not usable at all. So really, all the work they could have been doing in Austin to make Robotaxi work could essentially be all lost work. And it could have been just kind of like a Band-Aid to get us through until they got the new version update, which is version 14. Could have just been a Band-Aid, because they knew this model was not good enough to go widespread. But I think that they're thinking that version 14 is going to be good enough to go widespread, to the point of, after having some revision updates, maybe it'll be version 14.5 or something, but at version 14.5, maybe that is a confirmed good enough FSD that they can offer unsupervised to general public. And somebody might argue against that and say, well, they're doing a version update, they're already running Robotaxi in Austin on version 13. Why would it take version 14.5? Well, the reason why it might take up to version 14.5 and to recompare that to version 13 is they're not running version 13. They're running version 13 with a how do I call it? They're running version 13 with manually trained data for Austin, Texas. So you can see they're having Austin, Texas, and what they're having San Francisco, right? Not San Francisco. Is that what it is? The Bay Area, what is it? Is it San Francisco? I don't know. Whatever. In California. But basically the Robotaxi in the FSD 13 has been modified to work in Austin and work in the Bay Area. Why not? Or why is that a thing? Because version 13 wasn't really ready. They would have to have like more of that Waymo style approach of every city they would have to hard code. You know, if they wanted to do Indianapolis, Indiana, if they wanted to do New York City, if they wanted to do LA, if they wanted to do Miami, if they wanted to do Chicago, Illinois, right? All these cities, they would have to individually hard code the same way that Waymo kind of has to do with all their their training and their initial setup. Now, going into version 14, you're going to have all your initial versions of version 14, version 14.1, .2, .3. These are going to be like the working out the bugs of the version of software, right? So it's even plausible, like when me and you get version 14, like we might get version 14.1, or we might just get version 14.2. Because what happens is they'll roll that out to employees, they'll make corrections, they'll roll that out to a broader audience, they'll then make more corrections, updates, things like that, and then once they feel like they've gotten it confirmed, they'll release it to an even broader market, test it, right? Possibly make more version changes. So again, when we receive it, we could easily be on version 14.2, and we may not even take that long to receive it. We might receive that in like the next month or two. So I highly predict that they're going to have like 99.9% of the bugs worked out. I mean, really, they're already at 99.9%. They're just going to literally take that to 99.99%, where I think we're going to get to that close to 10x safer than a human. I think they're probably going to get, safer than a human with version 14, like one of the earlier versions, like even like the very first release. I think they might be at version like 14.1 or 2, they're probably going to be safer than a human with maybe an X multiple, maybe 2 times safer, 3 times safer, something like that. But again, that data is not going to really be transparent to Tesla or us until they have enough data collected to be able to confirm that's the case, right? They have to run millions of miles to collect that data to then understand on like how good it is. So I do think that once version 14 rolls out, they're going to do like the first couple of updates to correct any bugs. Then they're going to roll it out to mass public. They're not going to wait until they have it like perfectly refined and just make it absolutely perfect. Why? Because they need to start collecting more data on version 14. Now, don't get me wrong, like, as we're driving around in version 13, all that data and all that footage that we've taken throughout the entire history of Tesla can be applied and used as training data for version 14. So not only is Tesla upgrading the software, but they're also over time just building a bigger and bigger data bank of video footage of the entire United States, of the entire world, and being able to collect that and then collect it over long periods of time. So that way you have different variations of that data too. So like one time you're in the left lane, next time you're in the right lane, right? There's all different types of variations of that data, and it just compiles over time. Now some of that data may be over like some extended period of time, like 10 years. It's just not really useful, or could be corrupt data because of road construction. Maybe they changed the way that an intersection is today versus what it was. But there's still a lot of those things where they can train the model to based on those interventions. Why did it intervene, right? So it's more of the why versus this intersection's like this type of situation. So we're going to see a pretty early version of it. It's going to be like 14.1, 14.2 we'll have in our hands. And I think that literally, we'll probably have that by, let's say 3 weeks from now, right? If we start to get like if we start to get a general population release, we'll get that this week, and then we'll probably get a revision change and some updates, and then maybe like 2 to 3 weeks from now. So we're looking towards the like end of October that I think everybody's gonna have the version 14, and then we'll probably get some more updates into like November. We're probably going to see a lot of updates. The same way we've seen with version 13. You notice version 13 went from We went through like I don't know what it was, version 13.1, 2, 3, whatever, right? Pretty quickly, right? It was like a total of 6 months. We got like a new version update every month, and then we didn't see another version update. Since then, right? So it's been like over like 6 months since we've had a version update, and just to briefly touch on why that's a thing is because what'll happen is they're gonna try to make version 14 as good as they can. And then they're going to stop working on version 14. That's what they do. They stop working on version 13. That's why we haven't had an update for 6 months. Then they're going to be working on version 15. Now there's a plausibility version 15 won't even work on hardware level 4 vehicles. I'm just saying that could be a plausibility. Or they're going to try to work on. See, this is another thing they have to work on. They had to work on compressing the compute and the algorithm being able to execute on current version 4 hardwares, which is more work, right? Which they need it as efficient as they could potentially get it anyway, because the more efficient you can run the software, the better it'll run, and the more that it can execute. Because the way computers work is basically, it's like reading a book, and you got to look at it as like, what is your ability to read at a certain speed, right? Are you reading at like 100 words a minute, 200 words a minute, 1,000 words a minute? And that's basically the way that compute works. So you can either just have a faster computer to read faster, or you can basically crunch the code so that it's less words, in a sense. I'm just kind of like generalizing this so like that way everybody can understand what I'm saying. So there's still utility in them spending the energy to crunch code. But at some point when they're like just trying just to squeeze like a microsecond out, it becomes so inefficient trying to spend that much energy and resources into that. It's better to just scrap it, say it's not going to go on version 4 hardware, say it's not going to be a version 14 anymore. Now the next thing is going to have to be a version 15. And so they're going to, again, for the next 6 months, we'll see updates on version 14, and then we'll start to see updates on, then they'll start to work on version 15, which version 15 will probably come out roughly around the same time next year, maybe about 3 months before, and I'm just giving them like the rough same time frame that they took this time. So version 13 came out roughly a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago, so I think we'll see the same. Maybe 10 months from now, we'll see a version 15, and again, version 15 might be coming out on hardware level 5 and not 4, which will really suck for everybody that has a Tesla right now. But okay, before I get into that, I think they'll try to get version 15 to work on version 4. However, I think version 14, they weren't even positive if they could get version 14 to work on hardware level 4. So with that being said, for them to expand into another software with more parameters and basically more parameters, it just makes it harder for the computer to compute, right? It can't compute fast enough and creates lag in the system. When you have lag in the system, then you have latencies. When you have latencies, you then have accidents due to latency in the compute. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of move on. I went way deeper technically on this topic than I anticipated at all. Like this whole entire video was supposed to be more like the future of what was going to happen. But this is going to be a huge deal for multiple different things. The Robotaxi is going to use this version 14. It might also have some hard-coded instance fixing, which is okay, right? If you can from going from like a version 13 to a version 14, if you can take the amount of hard coding that needs to be fixed and reduce it by 90%, now it becomes more manageable, right? So, like, let's say, for instance, like today, if I started a Robotaxi in Miami on version 13, let's say, for instance, it takes me 3 months to do all, like, the hard coding, manual training, or whatever, right, to get Miami to work appropriately. And then you do that same thing with version 14. Now instead of taking 3 months to like train that area, to train Miami, maybe it takes 1 month, 2 weeks to train Miami on a manual basis. So that's okay again to do the manual training. Now, the reason why that's so important, because that's what really differentiates Tesla's future from Waymo's. If Tesla's going to take 3+ months to deploy into a new city, then they're basically Waymo for the most part. I mean, they have other characteristics like being able to manufacture the vehicles and having lower cost, sensory devices and all that good stuff, right? There's other competitive edges, but um, as far as scalability, they'll basically be in the same bracket as Waymo. Not quite. Again, they have other things like manufacturing that gives them the ability to deploy much quicker. But as far as like city to city expansion, I mean, if you look up like how many total cities are in the United States, I'm gonna look that up real quick. How many total? It's probably thousands cities are in the U.S. 20,000. Yeah, roughly 20,000. And 1,000 larger cities, right? But like, if you just said like, okay, well, there's 1,000 larger cities, that's still 1,000 again big cities. If it took you 3 months to do a city, I mean, we're going to be doing cities for 100 years. You know what I mean? Before we get Robotaxi rolled out, and then that's going to have a huge impact on Tesla's stock and revenue and ability to get that up to scale. I mean, these are the type of Waymo. This is the type of numbers like Waymo's experiencing. Now, the only benefit, not even benefit of moving slow, the caveat to that is that like I ran the numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but pretty much half the population lives in like 20 cities. So you really only have to get 20 cities to really cover the first half of the population. It becomes that second half of the population that becomes really a grind. And you could also probably take it to like that next 20%. So population 60% to 70% will be also less of a grind. So like if I said like 1,000 people live in large cities, well, that 1,000 people that live in large cities is probably like 80% of the population. So again, we're back to like 100 years of scaling up, like Robotaxi or Waymo or whatever it is, right? If it takes you 3 months every single city, and you can't do cities in tandem. Now, if they really have the technology working well enough and they can scale it up that quickly, then they could do 4 cities per 3 months or something like that. Just due to having more engineers deployed to it or compute or whatever's necessary to make it happen. Yeah, that's larger cities with 50,000 or more. But again, going to version 14, if they can crunch that down into like 2 weeks, now that's way more scalable than the 3 months. I mean, you literally cut that into 1/3, 1/6 of the amount of time going from version 13 to 14 to scale into a new city. And these are the type of numbers we need to see because we need them to deploy into or not, yeah. We needed them to deploy in Austin, Texas. Then we need, LA. Then we need to move them to Dallas and Houston and Miami and Chicago and New York City. And we need these deployments to happen very fast. We need the major cities to get accomplished more quickly than not. And basically the version 14 is going to give them the ability to scale much quicker. And so how well version 14 performs is really going to be the tell-all for how does Robotaxis scale out in the next 6 months to a year. Why is this particular moment in time more important than any other version of software? It's because we are so close to general Robotaxi autonomy, full self-driving autonomy. We're so close. We're like literally this version here, version 14, and or potentially maybe version 15. I'd say at absolute max, version 16. I'd be willing to bet the farm. I'm already betting the farm. So I'd be willing to bet the absolute farm that version 16, we're 100% autonomy, FSD, unsupervised, done. I'm willing to bet anything and everything. I almost bet my life on it. Not quite, but I pretty much would. That's how confident I feel on version, like at version 16 will be there. However, version 14, we could be there. It might be this version here right now that takes us to unsupervised. Sorry, guys, getting thirsty. But, and also, Elon said that hardware 4, their number one objective is to get hardware 4 to autonomy, right? First of all, their overall objective is get to autonomy, right? However they got to do it. Secondly, they want to get hardware 4 to autonomy, and he's saying that they think they can get hardware 4 to autonomy. I think hardware 4 is going to be like the entry level for autonomy. To get like 10x, 20x safer than a human, I think we're going to have to go to version V5 hardware. I also personally predict that somewhere down the future, there's going to be more cameras added to the vehicle. I think that if you look at it, things on like an engineering basis, there are instances where it would be safer to have like cameras in another location. A perfect example is, I think that like having cameras like on the front bumper that face outward, and think about like if you have like a blind spot, like you have a building right here and you're like pulling out and you have to like try to look around that building. Well, the way the cameras are currently positioned, you still have to get the nose of your vehicle out there in the road before you can see around that corner to be able to even analyze if it's safe or not. So I think over time we'll like come to the conclusion that the way that we've developed some of our roads and buildings and stuff like that, we've created blind spots, right? And those blind spots are only able to be mitigated by either changing the structure, changing the road completely. You could also just change the route, just like not go a certain way, and always take a different route. You say, hey, there's a blind spot on that route, don't take it. That's an option. That's something that we could definitely do, and could be done. And maybe there's already some version of that in FSD, and there's some degree of it for sure, because I noticed that it chooses main roads. Like whenever I'm going around to some of my different properties, we have properties that are like kind of located next to each other, and our Elite Automation shop is also located to some of those properties. The FSD will always kind of take the main road around. However, it could have turned like 2 roads before and took like the more residential road to get to like the shop or whatever, which I find very interesting. So what probably part of that is like, let's choose like the confident route. Again, that's another thing. So I think that they'll add cameras some point down the road. And so this is other hardware changes that we could have outside of just compute, right? Tesla might decide that they need more cameras on the vehicle in certain locations. Now, maybe they're not used 99% of the time. Like they can pick and choose like when they need to use other cameras. Like these cameras could, like I said, let's call them blind spot cameras, right? Or blind spot approach. You can leave those pretty much disabled until you say, hey, I'm reaching a blind spot, or camera number 1 says, hey, like, look, I can't see around this corner, help me out, and then those other cameras activate, which then makes it so that you don't necessarily have to waste the compute on those cameras. You basically just kind of like throw out the data all the time. You just never even really use the data until it's used. And I think that's kind of what's happening at the moment for the new bumper camera that they have on Teslas or whatever, on the new ones. They have that front bumper camera, and I think that they are only using those cameras in instances where like maybe they're taking off. And again, I think they're not using it for FSD at all right now. I think they're just training on those cameras. They're collecting data on those cameras. But that'll be the future. It's like in the future, they may not use that camera while driving, but they might use it from like a 0 miles an hour to a 5 mile an hour range. So that way, just to confirm, like, hey, I'm about to take off. Is there anything in front of me? No. Okay, good. I can go. And especially going from like a park to a go, I think that it'll definitely need that. So this is really gonna have a major impact and really tell us what's gonna happen over the next 3 to 12 months. Again, this might be the FSD that becomes unsupervised. I think it's highly plausible Robotaxi will 101% expand with this version of the software. I think that Tesla will also scale Robotaxi with this software. My biggest thing is that they're gonna have to do. They may potentially still have to do a decent amount of manual training, manual coding, however you want to call it, and that's obviously going to slow them down. And I also, from what my perception and prediction is, that like again, all the extra training they've done for version 13 for Robotaxi, even in like Austin, I think it goes to trash. I think they're not able to use it. I think what they have to do is they have to do that same process again with version 14. Again, a much quicker process. And the reason why I think that, and I talked about this very deeply in the parameters video, but basically you have, oh, how to put this? You have a lot more data to look at, right? And then so, how do I put this? Like, let's say, for instance, that, okay, let's use it with like this vehicle speed. Okay, you can say a car is coming my way, or you could say a car is coming my way and 30 miles an hour, right? So if version 13, and I'm just giving this completely example, if version 13 is coming my way, and that's the only signal that they give, is like just coming my way, your decision is made based off of that only. If I said version 14, vehicles coming my way at 30 miles an hour, now my decision might change, because if the vehicle's coming at me at 10 miles an hour, or if the vehicle's coming at me at 60 miles an hour, my decision now changes, right? And so the same thing, human's decision would change. If that car is going extremely fast, then I'm going to wait. If the vehicle, whereas like right now, it may be looking at that completely different. It might be looking at like, here's a vehicle, here's the speed limit for this road that I'm about to turn onto, and then just pairing those two together, and instead of using like analytical data or data from the cameras that say this is the vehicle speed by tracking it frame by frame. Which is actually a very interesting like legal thing that they can use in the future for like insurance purposes, because you can track speed by frames of a camera video. Completely different side topic, but so like the camera is now the AI is now tracking the speed of the car. So now the decision is completely different, right? And so every like consecutive decision is different. And this is a very simple example. This might be like 10 decision layers deep of things. I'm just giving you like this one little speed thing. It's just like a taste of like what I'm kind of getting at with the different parameters and everything like that, and why the retraining does not, or why I think the manual training does not necessarily convert from version 13 to 14, and all that manual training for version 13 is wasted. I could be wrong about this, but I just don't really think I am. I think I'm correct in the fact that because of all the decision making, because of having those extra parameters, all your decisions are now different. And I compared this also when I made that parameter video. This is the difference of like a child thinking about doing something. Like if somebody, perfect example, somebody walks up, smacks you in your face. You're a child. What do you do? You're a teenager. Somebody walks up, smacks you in the face. What do you do? You're an adult. Somebody walks up, smacks you in the face. What do you do? You're an older person, grandma, grandpa. Somebody walks up, smacks you in the face. What do you do? Everybody's brain, there's different maturity levels, so you can think about FSD as those maturity levels. You have version 12, 13, 14, different maturity levels. Your thought process on how you handle that situation completely changes. That's the difference between the different versions, right? You can't expect a teenager to think like an adult. It just does. You can't do that, right? Same as you can't think an adult think like an elder, more wise individual. Same with the child, right? Point being is that's the way that FSD or AI works. It kind of works on maturity levels versus it's not just hard coded. It's not just building on, but a maturity level. So all the thought processes change. When all your thought processes change, the way you speak to somebody changes, right? The way you speak to a teenager, you have to speak to a teenager different. Speak meaning the cameras have to give the data to the AI differently, or it's perceived different from the AI at different version levels. So again, I think a lot of that. Now there's some of the like manual training things that they did that they might be able to like kind of like it's not just copy and paste. They might be able to kind of rerun it through some of those trainings, at least where they find the same scenarios still causing issues. Maybe, but if it's like any type of super manual training, or if they built like an automated manual training, so it's like manual training, but the manual training is actually just hard coded manual training. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like an automation of software that then trains the FSD manually. No, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. No, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. No, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. That's kind of like a good, no good type of a training method, you know? Okay, this video has ran on to like 31 minutes now. If you stuck around to the end, thank you. I'm Malachi Greb, by the way, CEO of Elite Automation, Elite Properties, and an investor in Tesla. I'm personally going like all in on Tesla right now. Every extra free dollar that I have is pretty much going into Tesla. Well, I guess outside of the property investment stuff that we're doing, but that's kind of just diversification. If you stick around on the channel, I'm wish-washing my money. I'm taking my gains from Tesla. I'm buying properties. I'm cashing out on my properties and buying Tesla. If you're interested in those types of things, subscribe to this channel. Also, ask down in the comments below. I'm pretty much open book, and I'll kind of explain, teach, and do as much as I can to help out the community and provide value. So peace out, guys, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.